Hi everyone, long time no see, and welcome to my top 10 movies of 2021 video. 2021 was a crazy year for movies. It was super fun to watch tons of crazy big movies that were delayed come out. Some still got delayed. Some might not even come out. Who knows? But last year I watched 71 films and there was a lot to talk about. Obviously there's going to be some movies that don't make this list. There's a handful of movies that I just didn't watch this year. There's also a handful of movies that really haven't come out yet in a way that I can see them, that'll be coming out in January, that are technically still 2021 releases. So don't expect to see any of those movies on here. But before we get into the list, I want to name some honorable mentions. Films like The Last Duel, Nightmare Alley, Last Night in Soho, The Mitchells vs. the Machines, Belfast, Bo Burnham's Inside, Mass, Shiva Baby, and Judas and the Black Messiah. Gosh, I loved all of these movies so much and wanted to include them in my top 10, and I just couldn't. Gotta draw the line somewhere, right? Well, without dragging along anymore, let's get started. David Lowery taps into something that I really wished more directors would do with The Green Knight. The only comparison that I can think of anything remotely close to this is maybe Blade Runner 2049. Denis Villeneuve in that film did to the sci-fi genre what David Lowery does to the fantasy and medieval genre here. Rather than making the film rely on big action set pieces and battle sequences and dragons or anything crazy like that, the film is centered around a character, and it's really fascinating to just see this character's journey. You genuinely care about this character, and you really are just hanging on his every word and every moment of his journey, hoping that he'll find success. It's an incredible performance by Dev Patel. The visual effects are super understated and amazing. I really wish this movie was going to be nominated for visual effects, but I didn't see it in that short list, so I'm upset. Overall, this is just an amazing movie, and you're probably going to hear me say this a lot. It's just one that they don't make movies like this anymore, so I really liked it. This was my first exposure to Jane Campion as a filmmaker, and I have to say I want a lot more. I'm really excited for that Piano Criterion release coming out later this month, but holy crap is this movie incredible. Benedict Cumberbatch, Kirsten Dunst, Jesse Plemons, this cast is phenomenal. I would argue that the standout is Cody Schmidt-McPhee, a kid that I haven't seen really do anything since Let Me In, and boy is this an amazing performance. This is a character that I couldn't understand until the third act of the film, and I mean like late in the third act of the film. Part of this is due to Jane Campion's excellent writing and direction, but it's also a great performance along with it. The Power of the Dog is the type of movie that draws you in slowly. Its intentional slow pace is just dragging you along and disorienting you and making you uncomfortable and tense the entire time. And it uses all these tools to its advantage to surprise you at the end. The ending of this movie isn't some big crazy Shyamalan twist, but it is interesting to watch because it makes you look at the entire film differently. This is a film that I can't wait to watch a second time. I loved it so much, and I wish I could have seen it in a theater. Tatine or Titane or however you say it, I don't know, I'm not French, I'm sorry, blew me away. I was very shocked to see this movie come out its opening weekend to my city because I don't live in a tiny town or anything, but let's just say that art house films don't usually play here. But wow, this film is hard to watch and hard to recommend. This is probably one of the most unique viewing experiences that I had all year. It's one of those movies that I don't really want to talk about the plot points because I don't really want anyone who's gonna watch this movie to know anything going in. Again, I feel really weird recommending it to people because it's just so odd and dark. Like, this film is violent and cold and horny and all sorts of weird things, but it's also a beautiful work of art that's saying something that not many films have the boldness to say, and I have to commend this movie for that. Plus, the cinematography is incredible, the direction is amazing. It's a shame that this movie's probably just going to be ignored by the Oscars committee, but what else is new? Tick, Tick, Boom is the type of film that I like more the longer I think about it and the more that I watch it. Not that I didn't love this movie the first time that I saw it, but it wasn't in my top 10 originally. In fact, it crept its way into this list over time. Part of that is due to Andrew Garfield's incredible Oscar-worthy performance. I really hope the man gets nominated. And a lot of it is due to the fact that I really just connected with the character of Jonathan Larson. I didn't really know anything about the guy. I've never seen Rent. I haven't really listened to any of his music, but walking into this movie and realizing that it is about a struggling artist who's going through a crisis and about to turn 30, man, that really hit deep with me because that is literally where I am right at this second. Of course, Tick Tick Boom has a lot more to offer than just a soft spot for people to connect to who are about to turn 30. This movie has a lot to say about doing the right thing. This movie really kind of points out that, hey, it's hard to balance everything that you want in your life. Obviously, all of us want to change the world and make a difference, but all of us want the things that we want as well. We either want the family or the successful career, but we also want to have the things that we want. The film really touches on a level of, hey, if you really want to change the the world and have the things that you want, you've got to fight for it, and you're gonna have to make some sacrifices along the way. Also, it's a great musical. I love the songs and the lyrics. They really touched me. Ugh, I just love this movie. This is the film that I was kind of surprised to see make my top 10. Spencer is a very unique approach to the whole biopic. This movie isn't based on a true story. In fact, I think the opening moniker of the film says a fable based on true people, which is basically to say that this film tells the story about who Princess Diana is. These events probably aren't real, and the movie knows that. It's really insightful. It's also a beautiful portrait into someone who's really depressed. I mean, as someone who's gone through some mental health issues myself, I really connected to this character a lot. Realizing that you're in a situation that you can't really get out of and is really just hard for you to deal with and doesn't mesh well with your personality, that's hard to stomach. And this film's a love letter to people like that. I mean, I say that to make this film sound very happy and positive, which it's not. This movie is sad, but it's also beautiful. The cinematography is fantastic. Claire Mathon's attention to detail in every single frame is so amazing. This thing feels like a dream. Pablo Larraín's direction is on point, and Kristen Stewart has never been better. Holy crap, Steven Spielberg is back! Seriously, Steven Spielberg has been one of my favorite directors forever. I grew up loving this guy. But in like the past 10 years, he hasn't really impressed me all that much, and it seems like that's the general consensus on the internet as well. But West Side Story really changed that. This is probably, save for my #1 film, one of the best directed movies that I've seen all year. Spielberg really knows how to utilize big sets and a big budget to just make something feel cinematic, as cheesy as that sounds. All the musical numbers are fantastic, the casting was great, the cinematography was beautiful, the editing was top notch. This is one of those movies where you could tell just every single member, both cast and crew, were giving it their all, trying to make the best product possible, and boy does it pay off. Licorice Pizza is a film that I knew I was going to love. I don't say that to say that I have predisposition to the films that I see before I see them, but I watched the trailer and I was just like, man, this is going to be incredible. And the trailer was very leading as to what it actually was. This movie is kind of a hangout movie. It felt very similar to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, except, you know, without that kind of ending. The performances are incredible, especially Alana Haim and Cooper Hoffman. Dear heavens. Like, I love the idea of having two people who aren't good for each other and aren't really likable people in general, but you gravitate towards them and you want to see them happy and succeed. Like, I don't know. The Safdie brothers and Paul Thomas Anderson seem to have a knack for doing this, and Licorice Pizza is no different. This film is also Paul Thomas Anderson's happiest film today, and that made me very happy. Like, I watch his films and I think, man, this guy's sad, or man, I worry about this guy. But then I watch something like Licorice Pizza and I'm like, oh man, he's fine, he's okay, he's doing well, right? I don't know. I think this is just one of the most joyful films of the year, and if you haven't seen it, you absolutely should. This is the film on this list that's probably had the most staying power. I saw this film for the first time at 2020 Sundance, which was 2 years ago from the time of making this video. And it didn't get released until August of 2021. That's over a year and a half later. And I waited eagerly across that entire time, dying to see this movie a second time. And when I finally was able to see it, boy did it hit exactly the same way it did the first time. This is probably the most human experience that I had all year watching a movie. Where a lot of other films in the past have wanted to focus on life after death, 9 Days chooses to focus on what life is like before you come to Earth. And it's actually really fascinating to look at. This movie's got some beautiful themes and beautiful performances, and it really dissects what it means to be human. I know that that's kind of a cliche statement to make about artsy films, but I really can't describe it another way. The entire theme of this film is about valuing life and what it means to be alive, whether it's human emotions, or time spent doing the things that you love, or time spent with your family. This movie is just beautiful, and I recommend seeing it if you haven't. The performances are great, the cinematography is beautiful, the score is one of the best of the year. Guys, just see this movie. A little late in the year, surprise for me was Come On, Come On. I think a lot of this was due to the fact that I am just now becoming a parent, and this movie is really kind of what it's like to be a parent. It really tackles that learning curve that adults go through as they become a parent. Not that that's what this movie is literally about. It's actually about an uncle having to take care of his nephew for a little bit because his mom has to go out of town. And the kinetic chemistry between Joaquin Phoenix and Woody Norman's performance is really what carries this movie. Obviously, there's great parts to it as well. It's shot beautifully and it's edited marvelously, but this film really is about these two characters just learning how to navigate one another, and it's really kind of beautiful to watch. It's funny, it's endearing and heartwarming, and I loved every second of it. Alright, if you know me, you can't say you didn't see this coming. Dune isn't just my favorite movie of the year, this is my favorite film since Parasite. I know that that's not a very long interval between films, but this movie, along with films like Parasite and The Social Network, just reminded me why I love movies so much. And I mean, yeah, there's a lot of reasons you could point to why I love this movie. The scale is incredible. Denis Villeneuve is one of my favorite directors working today. I love Timothée Chalamet and the entire cast of this film. The score is earth-shaking and incredible. The visual effects are unlike anything I've ever seen before. Just the entire scope of this film is a marvel to behold. Movies like this don't get made anymore. That's not a knock towards movies like Marvel and Star Wars. Like, those movies are fun to watch, but those movies are made in a certain way. They use green screen and CGI. All that stuff's cool to see, but you can kind of tell that you're on a set when you're watching those movies. There's a little bit of human element that's lost, and that's not a fault of these movies. That's just what happens when you choose to shoot that big of stuff in scale on a soundstage. Dune is doing this stuff on massive sets that were built and on location. It's a blend of practical and CGI effects. It's the old way that Hollywood used to make blockbusters, and more movies need to be made this way. Obviously, this is just a part one of part two, and I know a lot of people are kind of discounting this movie for that, but for me, I didn't care. I was on board for every second of this film. Yes, the film is a cliffhanger, but I still felt the complete 3-act structure of this film, and it really just reminded me why I love movies so much. Geez, I could go on and on about this movie, couldn't I? So I'll just say, I love Dune. And that's it. That's my top 10 favorite movies of 2021. Gosh, I had so much fun going back to the movies this year. I hope you guys all did too. Let me know what your top 10 movies of the year were in the comment section below. And I'll see you next time, guys.